The Indianapolis Colts are potentially saying goodbye to Phillip Rivers for the last time. Or are they? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Colts podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network around. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd at horseshoehuddle.com, and today I'm joined by Ben Borus at Colts Film Room. You guys know him. You love him over there on social media, your favorite pessimist alongside me on Colts media at this point. Today, we're going to dive into Phillip Rivers. Just one last time. I promise the last time we'll talk about Phillip Rivers, because it does appear that this past game against the Jacksonville Jaguars was his final game with the Colts. All signs are pointing to Riley Leonard starting this weekend. So we'll talk about Phil and how this was such a remarkable thing that we saw out of a 44-year-old coming in off the couch. Then we'll dive into a little bit of Chris Ballard topics like you guys love here. Talk about Chris Ballard's drafting as of late, which just hasn't been good enough for the Colts to get that surplus value when a team like the Texans, for instance, have been getting a ton of surplus value on their draft picks. And then talk about some tough decisions coming this offseason and how Ben and I have identified the Samson Ebukam conversation of this upcoming offseason. We'll talk about that to close out today's show. But Ben, you and I are big-time film nerds. We're just big-time football dorks, and that's how we brand ourselves when it comes to how we cover the Colts. So looking at Phillip Rivers coming in cold, 5 years, eating all the food he wants, not working out to play in the NFL, not going through the motions of an NFL offseason or developing chemistry with players, comes in here, plays against two of the three best defenses in football in the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Seattle Seahawks, down his offensive tackles for some of those games as well, and a couple of offensive line starters. He's been without two of the five offensive line starters in all three of those starts. And honestly, it wasn't great numbers-wise. 63% completion percentage, 544 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, only 5.9 yards per attempt, which you just can't do in the NFL and be successful, and a 39.3 QBR. So this isn't great. But considering what he was stepping into, Ben, I thought this was remarkable to see from a 44-year-old quarterback with, again, just not football shape whatsoever. He limited the Colts offense in a lot of ways because of the lack of athleticism, but his ability to make the checks at the line, his ability to throw the ball before guys are out of their routes, the ability just to get some points on the board at all those things I mentioned, I thought it was one of the coolest stories I've ever seen in football, and I wish he would have gotten a win in one of these games, but for all the things that he was and he wasn't, I thought it was really cool to see Phil out there one last time.
I completely agree with you. At first, it was a hilarious joke. When he first decided this, I'm like, this is something they called, the Colts always have some fun storyline every year. And I thought it was they called Phillip Rivers when they went down. It's not actually going to happen. And then it did. And then, oh, wow, he's actually doing this. And then he looks hilarious running out of the tunnel from, in the Seattle game. But I think that before we get to how because when you take a step back, it's just such a insane. Imagine being a kid on that high school football team that you literally finish your season, and the next thing you know, your head coach just goes to be an NFL quarterback, and then you're heading to Indianapolis for one of his games. Just an awesome, totally agree. Just such a cool story as it is funny. I think the biggest compliment that you could give Phillip Rivers is in that Seattle game. People were upset that the Colts lost that game, where it's you felt like the team had a chance. You had an unbelievable roller coaster from the defense in the 3 games that he's played. You saw a really good game versus the Seattle Seahawks on the road. That was an impressive performance for them to not allow a touchdown. And then for them to have maybe one of the worst performances that we've ever seen from a Colts defense, really since Gus Bradley was been around, and a game that the 49ers just had everyone's number. But I think the biggest compliment you can give Phillip Rivers is that people were upset when the Colts lost because they still thought that they had a chance. And I think that's people in the locker room. I think that's the fans. And if there's any way to go out, the Colts they went out sad, but they also went out funny, and also gave us an unbelievable story out of this. So from that, you have to appreciate it.
I mean, they were competitive in 2 of the 3 games down to their fourth string quarterback, whatever you want to call Phillip Rivers, right? I call him the e-bug goalie, basically, of quarterbacks. Being down to that and being competitive in 2 of those 3 games, and you were playing against top teams in the league. I mean, Jacksonville's the hottest team in football, aside from maybe the Texans right now. They played against San Fran, who just can't lose despite not having you and me playing defense for them right now, Ben. And then Seattle, who's fighting for the 1 seed in the NFC. I mean, 49ers are fighting for the 1 seed as well, so to speak. So for the Colts to be competitive in these games, I'm not trying to be moral victory about this stuff because we're past the point of moral victories with the Colts, but I think it just speaks to Phillip Rivers. The fact that defenses knew that ball was not going past 15 yards. We saw it against the Jaguars when it kind of came undone a little bit. Anytime you tried to push that ball past 15 yards, it was fluttering. We're calling them wounded ducks. We're calling them filleted ducks, whatever at this point. Like, they were terrible. He doesn't have the arm strength. He's not in shape at all. And I think a lot of it's just his footwork. He can't move his feet right now because he's not in shape. But to get some of the production they did, 4 touchdown passes, considering what he was coming off of and the defenses he played against, I really thought it was phenomenal. So
I thought the game plans were good too. Like, for the most part, like, when you think about the limitations that you have, like, I think if this move doesn't say anything about shit, like, this move totally tells you with Shane Steichen is he wants a guy that can run his offense. That's
true.
Like, if he didn't, Riley Leonard would probably be out there because Shane doesn't really like young quarterbacks, which is kind of ironic because he developed Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, and that's what we thought that the Colts were getting when they, brought on Shane Steichen as the head coach. But like, it was pretty miraculous. Like, the 49ers game is going to stick with me because it's and it's created such a large discussion about quarterback development, some which I don't think is warranted, some which I think is. But like, you don't see quarterbacks basically go up to the line of scrimmage and call plays essentially from the line of scrimmage and then basically undress a defense through motion or for whatever they're doing pre-snap. And Phillip Rivers was locked in every single play. I thought it was one of the more unique things and kind of like something we used to see maybe 15 years ago every single Sunday. We don't see that as much. It was really cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think to your Shane Steichen credit, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this right now because we're in the mood to fire everybody, which I get. Again, when you lose as many games in a row as the Colts have lost, I'm fine with having these conversations about firing everybody. But I thought one of the most fascinating things was this past Sunday against the Jaguars, where I was saying the first 2 weeks with Phillip Rivers, the Colts cannot go under center with this guy. No chance you can go under center. He can't move. And if I'm a defense, I'm not even prepared for under center. And they just rip off all these under center runs to start the game. And they get this 10-point lead on Jacksonville, which is one of the best defenses in the league, because Jacksonville had no clue this was coming. It's under center. Now, you can only get so far with the art of surprise, against a very good defense. So once Jacksonville settled in and that shock factor wear it off, you're making the 44-year-old quarterback without an arm beat you, and then the Colts weren't able to score points outside of Ashton Dulin manufacturing great field position. But the fact that they were able to even do that against a very good defense with their limitations, I think speaks to, again, just how incredible this experience was for what the Colts were able to do. Again, I know we're going to get a lot of comments being like, it was dreadful, they still lost the games, and yeah, they did. But they were going to lose regardless of who they put out there at quarterback, right? To even get this out of Phillip Rivers, I think is just fascinating. So I find it really cool from like the film nerd like aspect of it, just how the Colts were able to generate points, how in those first 2 games they drastically changed their offense to be all gun run and do whatever they could to manufacture points. In this past game, they tried to get some under center stuff. It even drew up a cool little pop pass touchdown to Mo Alley-Cox in the red zone, which was cool.
Same one that they ran in the must-win game that they lost, the last game in 2023. That was the same one. And it's like, it was, like, you can just tell. And like, I think that was really cool. Like, the offensive line also, I think, played a role in this. Like, I think what we can't forget is like, it wasn't just Phil out there with like everything that Daniel Jones had to work with. Yes, they had the receivers and Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren, but like, they ran only halfback draw in that Seattle game because they knew they couldn't get push anywhere else. And I think that like, it was just really cool from like, and I get it. No one wants to talk about me like praising Shane. I completely understand that. But like, I think if you're like thinking about like, okay, Phillip Rivers just gives us the best chance he can run the offense. The game plans are really, that's the part of the game I always find interesting. And I think Shane did a really good job in those weeks, despite the loss.
Yeah, no, we certainly have our gripes with Shane Steichen, the head coach, our gripes with the team in general. So don't
I'm
get me
looking
wrong.
at
Like
the vacuum.
yeah,
Yeah.
our last two segments here are going to be ripping into Chris Ballard and this team. So don't worry, guys. We're going to have that ready for you. But I just want to say goodbye to Phillip Rivers for maybe the last time. Maybe at age 50 he comes back. But thank you for the memories. That was a really fun time for me. Like honestly, it can be so like look at what the Vikings have to watch with Brosmer every single weekend playing quarterback. It can be dreadful when you're down to your third and fourth quarterback or whatever they're down to. But for Phillip Rivers come in here and have some fun football and some fun moments, I want to say, I guess, a good old thank you to Phillip Rivers. Now enjoy coaching high school football again next year, and we'll see what happens with this Colts team. But moving on, guys, the Colts season's over, so we have a lot of stuff to talk about. And number one enemy for Ben and I is Chris Ballard right now. So we're going to talk about his drafting as of late and how the Colts have been missing out on a lot of surplus value, especially in the Ballard and Steichen era that we've been in these last 3 years. But first, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. You got bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes from teams that are still technically in the playoff hunt, unlike the Colts. It's all happening at once, and while we're all making choices every single day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is with PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy sports. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in that game. It's simple, it's fast, and it's available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. The early payout feature is a great bonus as well. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. So if you're panicky like me, make sure you take that feature. Download the PrizePick app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, Locked On Colts everydayers, we are back. I want to thank you guys real quick for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. And thank you for making Locked On Sports the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, check out our new Everydayer clubs. You can catch audio ad-free and get an invite to members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat for listeners of our shows. Make sure you go to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join or even gift a subscription past the holiday season here. I'm joined again to mention, if you guys didn't hear the first segment here, Ben Borus at Colts Film Room, my favorite snarky film guy alongside myself in the Colts media atmosphere. We're going to dive into Chris Ballard because I have been having these emotional rants lately, and I need someone to piggyback or even push back on me a little bit, Ben. But I think a big thing that, when it comes to Chris Ballard, especially early in his tenure, the big saving grace has been like, oh, he's a pretty good drafter. He's been getting some good draft picks in here. And I think early in his tenure, you can certainly say that, right? You got Grover Stewart in here, Quentin Nelson, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., like a lot of good players, and Shaquille Leonard, Braden Smith. I mean, so many good players that came in here and built the core of this team. But when it comes to the NFL, Ben, the most important contracts are making sure that you have superstars on your roster because those win and lose games, like quarterbacks and pass rushers, but also the surplus value you're getting out of your rookie draft classes. Not every player needs to be a starter. Not every player needs to be a star for your team, but on those rookie contracts, you need to have contributors. And when I look at what Ballard and Steichen have, and Steichen falls into this too, because coaching is certainly a part of this, but in the 29 picks of the Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen era, so the last 3 draft classes, 34% of those picks are no longer on active rosters on the active roster for the Colts, right? So that includes like Tim Smith, who's been on the practice squad all year. The biggest one right here, though, only 58% of those 29 draft picks have appeared in 10 or more NFL games to this point. Now, injuries are injuries are a factor in this, and a lot of, like, Daniel Scott, for instance, falls into this, and he just gets hurt every single time he touches the field. But that's part of drafting. You have to be able to get players in here. They're just not getting anything in terms of surplus value out of their draft picks, Ben. And we're going to go through some of the hits and misses from day 1 and day 2 picks. But like, just in general, like, only having 58% of your draft picks over the last 3 years play in 10 or more games. Like,
that's the crazy one.
Yeah,
that's the crazy one.
You need to get value out of these draft picks, and value can come in different ways, from special teams ability to being like rotational players. Like, they're not getting any kind of value out of their draft picks in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think that's where like we've seen. I truly believe that if they had hit on some of these guys that they have missed on, and like obviously you're never going to hit on every single player in the draft. Like we know this. Like I'm not saying that, but when your second round picks for the last 2 years or 2 of your last 3 years are either are just playing for different teams, and I know you traded one, but you still made the decision to trade one. That's going to put strain on your depth. And I think that's where we've seen this Colts team really fumble, is the fact that like there hasn't been, when guys go down, like there hasn't been people to step up. The cornerback depth has been pretty bad. Like I think that that's obviously something like you wish Justin Wally. I actually think the domino meme of like Sauce Gardner's never on the, like Justin Wally gets hurt in camp, Sauce Gardner isn't, like all the Xavier Howard, like that feels like forever ago. But I think that's what we've seen. That's the story of the Colts season, I think, is the depth was certainly strained this year. And I think that that's what happens when you don't hit on day 2 of the draft, which Chris Ballard has really made his living, I think, off of, at least in the first half. I think you can almost split Chris Ballard's tenure into the Frank Reich side of things versus the Shane Steichen things, where I think he almost tried to reverse course a little bit too much maybe this year. He said, said we're not close at 8 and 9. He goes out, makes all these moves. And, obviously I think Lou Anarumo probably played a part in why Jermaine Pratt and some of his guys in Cincinnati were playing. But I just think when you look at this, like you can't, this is what's happened. It's caught up to the Colts, where they haven't had enough of these young talent. They've gotten rid of some of their young talent that hasn't worked out. And that's why we're seeing guys play on Sundays who just aren't what other teams are working with when they do have those injuries.
Yeah. And I would say, honestly, just looking back at like their top 100 picks in the last 3 years, right? I would say the only like surplus value player that's like either performing at or above their draft position is Tyler Warren. And I think you and I are both in full agreement that he's going to be very good. I think there was a little bit of a lull there. He had his sickness.
It's a rookie wall.
Rookie wall.
But like, you will watch the film, I think, and he's gotten better. Like I really think he has. And like, I get the production is not the same. I think part of that was like the Colts found, this could be a whole other video, but like, I agree. Tyler Warren is a guy that he was picked. He was a layup of a draft pick, similar to Quentin Nelson when they did make that trade back. I know that it wasn't exactly the same type of layup where like everyone was mocking Tyler Warren to the Colts for months, but like it was a layup and the Colts made the layup. And I think that they get credit for that for sure.
Yeah, biggest surplus value they've had. And then you got guys like Leatu Latu, Matt Gonsalves, Josh Downs, solid players. I think you're getting some value out of those guys. They're playing up to their draft position. You're getting at least quality starters, or at least adequate starters in the NFL. But when you look at the misses, and you alluded to this a second ago, Anthony Richardson missing on a top 5 quarterback pick is usually a death sentence for a head coach and for a general manager. It hasn't been that so far for either of those guys, but missing on that quarterback, again, it appears to be a miss, like, because he's just not even getting the starts or getting the time. He's had a lot of injuries, but that's part of misses in the NFL. Juju Brents, just never healthy in the NFL. He's on a different team.
And then there's a coaching change, and it was never going to work. But he also didn't play, so it's like they didn't really get anything out of that.
Yeah, A.D. Mitchell could turn into a fine player, but it's not going to be for the Colts, right? He's with the Jets right now. And then honestly, like, I'm not calling this guy a bust. It's been very early in his NFL career, but it's not looking great for JT Tuimoloau. Like, what are the odds that a player can go from a below average rotational guy to being like a plus player for you on his rookie contract? I don't think it's great. So we'll see if he can turn it around. But as of right now, like, again, Richardson, a top 5 pick, Brents, Mitchell, and JT Tuimoloau, those were pretty high second round pick players. Brents was like the 34th overall pick.
I also think that, like,
you're not getting much out of them.
Can I get something? Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to point out too, because I put a tweet out about this, is like the way that Ballard has drafted in the past has led to also a surplus of guys that don't hit their stride until they're ready to walk out the door. And I think that that's the issue that the Colts also face, where like, it's great that Bernhard Raimann turned into the guy, and he was obviously an extension candidate, but you also did have that initial, and this is also like, I understand that this happens, but it happens to the Colts more than it does anyone else. Dio Dangbo has a career year, but it's in a contract year when he's ready to walk out the door. Alec Pierce, I think, is another guy where it's like, yes, he's turned into this great player. You can consider that a hit. I would also say that for half of his, maybe a little bit more than half of his rookie contract, he was non-existent in the offense. Like, I think I put a tweet out, I think you can maybe count like of the 80 plus picks that Chris Ballard has made, maybe 8 of them have maximized their time in their rookie contract, like just truly maximized it. While you're looking at teams like the Rams, who found their entire defensive line in day 2 of the draft and produced right away. And obviously that's an anomaly, but like it just proves on average where like the style of drafting has caught up to the Colts, where a lot of their players that were on their second contracts didn't, like Zaire Franklin's I know he's a 7th round pick or whatever, but like it's just the type of style where like you get towards the end of their rookie deal and that's when they're ready to become the players that they thought they could be.
Yeah, Texans are a good example too of the other way, where they haven't had a first round pick the last 2 years. So look, Ben, it's possible you can still draft well without a first round pick.
That's another show about the
right, another show.
Because I could go, and I think that's where.
But they've, without a first round pick the last years, they've gotten guys like Kamari Lassiter, Ursery at tackle, who looks like tackle of the future for them. They've got Woody Marks. They've gotten all those receivers from Hutchinson to Higgins to Knoll. They've built that entire roster and getting so much surplus value. Jalen Petrie, so many good players on surplus value, where the Colts, it's like, yes, the Gonsalveses, the Bordolinis, the Josh Downs, like those are good additions to your team. But when you're not getting like many games out of your draft picks, you're not getting like plus value guys who are overperforming. Like, again, if you're looking at the Texans, like guys like Lassiter and Petrie and Woody Marks are outplaying their draft position by a ton. The Colts, I don't know how many guys are really doing that. And if they are doing it, like you mentioned, they're doing it in year 4 or year 5 when you got to pay them. I think Nick Cross is also kind of a guy like that. For like 2.5 years, we weren't really getting anything out of the guy. And now when you have to pay him, it's like, is he going to keep ascending or is this what he is? That's kind of the conversation the Colts have to keep having.
And it's either that, and then I also think the Colts have to be, this is also where good teams win and the Eagles get the edge over this over anyone else, is where they identify these guys that maybe haven't hit their stride yet, but have already locked them down to a more affordable deal. Like imagine if the Colts had seen what is coming with Alec Pierce and just extended him, like, and didn't have to be in this position where he basically had all the leverage, and they've only given him more leverage after trading away A.D. Mitchell. So that he's going to get an absolute bag, and the Colts could have had him for more affordable a year later if they had offered that extension. Like when you go look at when the Colts are ready to pay people, they don't do it until late, and they haven't been, their pro scouting or whoever it is has not been good enough to identify, or they don't have the permission to. I think that's the other part of this too with ownership, is like the teams that win draft really well, but they also are paying their guys early so that they don't have to have these long drawn out contract negotiations. They've already have, and they have value. They're signing guys to value. The Colts have thrown all of that out the window.
Yeah. And coming up, guys, the complaints about Chris Ballard don't end there. I think the biggest complaint we have, and we saved this for the last segment because it's a little spicy, might get us in some trouble with people, but Chris Ballard does not like to part with his guys when it's the right business decision, and there's at least one contract that cannot return to the Colts at its current state after this season. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But first, guys, let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. I guess my wife would, but that's one of the few people out there that would. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you could focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do all of it from one place without the hassle or the hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for 1 month price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. And Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save hours every single week. Knowing that you can reach those certified HR experts anytime also gives you real peace of mind with Gusto. So try Gusto today and gusto.com/lockedonnfl and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnfl. One more time, that's gusto.com/lockedonnfl. All right, Locked On Colts Everydayers, we are back with our Chris Ballard rants and rumblings and complaints, essentially, is what we're doing on this show. And for the rest of the offseason, especially if he's able to come back for year 10 with the Colts. But Ben and me and so many other people in just Colts media were identifying one contract at this time last offseason, or I guess the whole offseason, and it was Samson Ebukam could not come back at his deal last year, coming off the Achilles tear, 30 years old, at a position where the Achilles really hinders. Ebukam making $10 million was not going to be a good play for the Colts. They decided to bring him back. Chris Ballard got all sentimental about it, saying if anyone can come back from this, he can. And he didn't. He did not come back well from it. He is not even half the player that he was 2 years ago, and the Colts paid the price for keeping that money on the books. Now we have another player here, which is actually a little bit more significant than Ebukam, because Ebukam, it was like you save
that guy.
Yeah, you save $8 million though if you cut him, or like $6.5 million, I think is what it was. So you're not saving a ton of money. But this one, Ben, this is a homegrown guy, has a farm in Indy. Michael Pittman Jr., he's set to make $29 million against the cap next season. The Colts have zero guaranteed money left on that deal after this year. Only $5 million in dead cap, and they could save $24 million if they either cut him or trade him to somebody else. And look, Ben, the way this offense was operating this past season, even when Daniel Jones was fully healthy earlier in the year with their bootleg stuff and more 12 personnel, and the core elements of this offense being Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, and honestly Alec Pierce with his deep threat ability, Michael Pittman Jr. is simply just not worth the $29 million cap hit this year or any year really in his career, but especially not this last season or going forward. So look, it comes down to mind over heart here, and you just can't bring him back at that $29 million cap hit, especially if you're going to be tight against the books. Bringing back a Daniel Jones, bringing back an Alec Pierce, like it doesn't make sense to bring back Michael Pittman Jr. at $29 million, especially like also you got to fix this edge rush room. You can't fix this edge rush room with that $29 million cap hit there. So I think this contract needs to go in some way this offseason.
Yeah, I think I'm actually a little bit optimistic that this one's going to be something that Ballard, if he's back, or whoever is the new general manager, if the Colts make that move, I'm optimistic that one goes. At least if he's willing to take a pay cut, whatever they do. I mean, I don't think that they will have him play on a $29 million deal for this. The idea of when the Colts, but I agree with you. It absolutely has to go. I think that's
they're going to extend it. Watch, they'll extend him. They'll extend him and give him still pretty good contract.
Okay,
I will stamp this right now here at the end of this podcast. If Chris Ballard returns, he will extend Michael Pittman Jr. this offseason. What are your thoughts?
All right,
what are your thoughts?
Anyway, I think that, and I believe Michael Pittman actually said this on a podcast one time when he signed the deal. When they signed those deals, so to take everyone back, this is where the state of the Colts are. In 2023, the Colts, obviously, they overachieved with the same roster that had not won anything in 22. And they said, oh, you know what, we're close. The infamous run it back year. So what they do is they take all their free agents that had expiring contracts at the time, and they signed them to a 3-year deal with the guarantees pretty much being in the first 2 years for all of them. So there's a lot of Colts, and I put this out on Twitter, that have zero guaranteed money. Now you can play on a deal that has $0 in guarantees. A lot of players just won't do that for a lot of really smart reasons. So they're either going to want to renegotiate, or it makes it easier for the team to cut ties. I think that Pittman knows that he's not going to be playing on that type of contract. If Ballard's back, I also don't know that. To me, Pittman is a guy who's fought. I will never criticize Michael Pittman's toughness or his ability to play for this franchise. Like, he has been through so many different quarterbacks, so much nonsense here. I'm never going to criticize him for that. I would also say that when you don't perform, business decisions have to get made. I would think he knows that. I would think his agent knows that. And I don't think this is a player that the Colts can pay that would prohibit them from winning more football games. And I don't think paying Michael Pittman Jr. a contract is going to help them win more football games when you see other needs on the roster. There's 52 guys right now, and I don't think that Michael, as nicely as possible, I think Michael Pittman has a skill set that is easier to replace than maybe some of the other stuff that money could go to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, especially if it costs them Alec Pierce, for instance. Like, if we're just doing a 1-to-1, if it costs them Alec Pierce, it's a no-brainer what you do.
And in 2023, we would not be saying this. I remember one of the first, like, we did not know what Alec Pierce, this is kind of calling all of our segments into full circle, but like Alec Pierce has outplayed, developed a true route tree, can win at all levels of the field. Now he doesn't maybe run at the shorter, routes the way Pittman does, but he's a very good deep threat, but he also does other things now too. So it's like, this is clearly a young player that is worth paying, that has the higher ceiling, where Michael Pittman does a lot, but like whenever anyone describes Michael Pittman, it's like he does a lot of the dirty stuff well. And, like that, he's a great run blocker. He's tough. He's physical. He has reliable hands. These are all true. I'm not discrediting Pittman's play. I'm just saying that when you describe what Pierce can bring to an offense versus what Pittman can, doesn't mean that Michael Pittman's not a good player. Not everyone catches 100 whatever footballs. If you're not good, you have to be good. I just think that the Colts will probably look to replace that, other than extend that kind of type of receiver.
We'll see. If Chris Ballard is back, we have never seen him make a move like that before in his time with the Colts. We have never, ever seen it. And for as much as he has changed, or says he's changed and changed over the years, I've just never seen him do that. I don't know if he would cut ties. I think an extension.
Yeah, and I don't think, I'll be honest, I don't think Steichen would like, sometimes I think that there's like disagreement between Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, where some of Chris Ballard's draft picks are no longer on the team, or for whatever reason. And I feel like this is something where both of them would be in agreement in bringing Michael Pittman back. Oh, did I lose you?
Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
No, you're good. I just look similar to the Braden Smith situation of someone who meant a lot to the organization, that they know when, because the Braden Smith situation, the way that he can play on the contract, all these kind of things, like have to fix that part of it, and they did. So I feel like this would be something similar, where they realize a business is a business, but I also don't blame you at all for saying that.
Yeah, it's just in line with what they've done. Real quick, Ben, before we get out of here, a couple other contracts that I think the Colts will have to just look long and hard at. Zaire Franklin, he's due $8 million against the cap hit this next season, $2.5 million in dead cap, 5.75 in cap savings. Kenny Moore due $13.2 million this next season. You have to eat a little bit more dead cap with him, $6.05 million in dead cap and $7.15 million in savings with him. And then Grover Stewart, $14.25 million cap hit. You only save, you save $12.25 million and you only eat $2 million in dead cap. So like you said, they structured a lot of these deals to be things that are ways that they can get off of them after this year. The Sauce Gardner trade changed a lot of things, obviously, but I think it's interesting that all these conversations are coming up with the Colts, and we'll have to see which direction they go without a first-round pick after the year and kind of see where they go there. But that's all we have for today, guys. Those are just the last couple contracts, and we'll probably do a future video on them. Real quick, though, before we get out of here, if you guys need a last-minute holiday gift, or maybe you forgot a gift and you just need to do something real quick here after the holidays, get the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and much more. Subscriptions be gifted through lockedoncolts.supercast.com. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, at Zach Hicks 2, and at Colts Film Room, all over there on socials. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We love your guys' rings, views. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.